Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Market Down podcast clip. My name is Nick Cummings, joined by Danny Hernandez and James Chisanti. We wanted to take this time real quick to discuss a big news event that happened this week because we have so much WrestleMania content coming out, and please go check all of that out. But we wanted to get in this story that doesn't really have anything to do with WrestleMania, and that is MJF's recent turmoil with AEW and Tony Kahn. So, per Dave Meltzer, MJF went on to the Ariel Helwani show a few days ago, and MJF had not cleared that apparently with AEW's PR department, which is normally how you would do such a thing. When you want to go to an interview, you talk to them, they okay it, you go do the interview. Tony was apparently upset about this, not anything he said in the interview. Reportedly, he was okay with that, but he was annoyed that MJF hadn't gone through the proper channels. Again, this is all per Dave Meltzer. And Meltzer then reported that they had a very heated discussion, but it has since been resolved. Sean Ross Sapp then went on to add to this report and quote, and I say, quote, and saying, and I quote, I know MJF is frustrated about his contract and wants to be paid more, and that's just the long and short of it. There are a lot more people that have come in after him that are getting paid way more, end quote. He then went on to say that MJF doesn't seem to be moving on their position, and this is a, quote, minor speed bump. But there's a lot here, James. There's the fact that MJF has been both, well, seemingly in kayfabe, that he seems very okay with the idea of leaving when his contract is up and going to WWE for more money, or at least at the very least using the two of them to negotiate against each other. But we all thought that was part of the act. Now it seems that this might be true. He certainly wants to get paid more, especially with guys like Danielson and Cole coming in after him and getting paid a lot more, allegedly. So do you think how much of this do you think is true? How much do you think is a work? And should we start getting worried that MJF is going to make a jump to WWE?
Well, I think we could all, take a breather on the jump to WWE thing.
We do have a few years on that.
Yeah, we do have a couple of years left on his contract, one way or the other, and he said that he will not sign anything until this contract is up. Not that he could sign with anyone until this contract is up, but I think it's a little bit of both. I think we have a situation where MJF did do this interview without asking, without, passing it on that he was going to do it. I think there was some hurt feelings on Tony Khan's part that such a sensitive interview was going to happen and they didn't know it was coming. And I think it's very reasonable to think that MJF is not being paid what he should, because the last contract he had before AEW was with MLW, where he was making $500 a week. So whatever he was making with AEW next was going to be a significant jump, but his stock has risen so much since he first signed with the company that I could see him not being getting quite what he deserves. And to be fair, there are people who have come in after him who should still be paid more than him. A Bryan Danielson should be paid more than MJF. A CM Punk should be paid more than MJF. Even Adam Cole and maybe even Keith Lee should be paid more than MJF. That said, MJF is the future of wrestling. He is that damn good, and he is such an asset that if I'm AEW, I want to keep him happy. I'm not gonna throw every last dollar I have at him, but I am going to try to cultivate that relationship. I am going to try and maintain it and meet him halfway. That way I have this guy on my roster for as long as I can. Yeah, I don't ever want to see him in WWE. I think he could thrive there. I do think that he could do well there, but I don't think he'll ever have the freedom that he has in AEW. And I don't want it. I don't want it. And I hope this gets resolved. I hope this was just a little misunderstanding. And that's the big thing too. MJF has always been called a professional. everyone who really sort of breaks kayfabe with him, who talks about the real MJF, acknowledges what a respectful guy he is and how much he cares about the business and how much he values the business and how he always tries to do the right thing backstage. So if this did happen, I want to believe it was just one of those thoughtless errors, and I hope it wasn't him trying to send a message.
Yeah, that would suck. I think it's important to note that when he did sign his contract, AEW was in a completely different position than where they are now. They were, a fledgling company. They didn't know how this was going to succeed. And obviously, contracts at the time reflected that. So clearly, a guy who was just making his way onto the national stage, or at this level at least, was going to not make as much money. And, guys who have come in later are going to end up getting paid more strictly due to circumstance. And in the cases of the guys you named, fame. Now, obviously, MJF's stock, as you said, has rose significantly to the point where he is one of their top guys. He's been referred to as one of the 4 pillars. And he's challenged for the main title. So, Danny, I think obviously they have to pay this guy at some point, and he won't negotiate now. But I always saw him as an AEW lifer, and I think now I'm not saying I'm concerned, but like now there's that little glimmer of doubt in there, even if it is just a work.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I thought he was an AEW lifer. There was another guy who he's friends with that, we thought was an AEW lifer, who in interviews on a podcast on his company's own YouTube channel said he was a lifer because he couldn't go back. He had no choice. But he's doing something now. It's tough to say, but I still see MJF as a lifer. I still kind of see him as one of those guys because he not only do people call him a pillar, like he brought the pillars into fruition. Like he's the one who named them pillars, and that was part of the story. But I think it's really the company. That's one of the many ways they've let him know that he is special and he is a big deal and he is going to be a huge part of this company always. Like they invented a battle royal for him to win every year, with the diamond ring. Like they are gonna give him the world title between now and when his contract runs out, and not because it's not a hey, please resign with us world title reign. This is we've always had the plan of putting the title on you. There's never been a doubt in my mind that they see him as a world champion. So they'll throw whatever amount of money they have to. And that's the only thing where you don't want to sign an extension yet because you want to play both sides for more money. And hey, I understand that, that's smart. I get it. But then how are you going to complain about money when you're limiting your funds between now and 2024 when you could sign an extension in like a month and be making more money right away? But you want to play the long game with the money, so deal with it for now. I kind of don't feel that bad about it. But I would hate to see MJF in WWE. You said you think he could thrive, James. I don't think he can. I think so much of what makes him good would be neutered by the PG rating. Like so much of it. It just wouldn't work to the same effect. And then at best, he would be the Miz, and at worst, he would be EC3. And both those options suck to me.
So when I say I think he could thrive, I think he could be successful there. And whatever you want to say about the Miz is an undoubted success story for that company. Like, how many Grand Slam champions are there? Miz is one of them 2 times over.
Oh God, don't use that as a real. Who cares? What?
I mean,
Especially about the 2 times thing, the Grand Slam thing, sure, but oh my God, he's won all the mid card titles more than once. Ooh, what do you do? Like, who
Hey,
cares?
he's good. He's gonna be a Hall of Famer.
he's gonna headline
Yeah.
the Hall of Fame class.
Yeah, cool. You know who's like Charmel's going into the Hall of Fame? Who cares? It's not a real. It's not the Baseball Hall of Fame. Like, this is a joke Hall of Fame that anyone could get into.
I know. I was just doing that to annoy you.
No, he could be in there. I have no issue with it because it doesn't matter. It's not a real thing. And even if it was, I would still be okay with him going in there, honestly. So, but like, MJF could succeed to a degree in WWE. It's just not the way I want him to succeed, and not as much as he can succeed in AEW. And as far as the interview thing, it's like, I mean, that's just on him. It's like a real simple thing. I feel like there's no way they were going to say no. So literally all you had to do was just be like, hey, I want to do this interview. And they would have greenlit it immediately. So that's, like I said, apparently it's been resolved, and that's good because it's ultimately whatever. Because it's not like everything he said in these interviews, he said in all the other interviews. So it's not like he said anything like crazy. So, hopefully this is a bigger, hopefully this has more traction as a news story and not as reality. Hopefully it's not as big as the dirt sheet's making it out to be.
Yeah, I want to say to your point, Danny, about him going to WWE. James is like he'd do well there, but you're right. What makes him great is the freedom that AEW provides him, and I think that's he mentioned that in an interview. It might have been the Ariel one, but it's in one of his recent ones where he signed to AEW for that freedom. So I think him losing that would be such a hit to his, in-ring character that like he'd still be good in WWE, but he wouldn't be anywhere close to the same. As for the money, Fightful Select is reporting that AEW is saying that a lot of these recent contract expirings, they're not really releasing anybody, but they're just letting people's contracts lap, excuse me. One of the reasons is budgetary reasons. They're also citing the fact that roster has way too many people on it, which is true. But if budget reasons is a thing, the money might not be there, at least right now. So if MJF was maybe looking for just a pay raise in the short term before, and not even an extension, that might not be feasible unless they're literally just doing this to pay him. But it might not be feasible in the short term. And that sort of compromise might not be available to them. So it's a very tricky situation, something I think we're going to have to monitor, but it's also something that's going to be playing out over the next 2 or 3 years, or, until the end of MJF's contract. So that wraps things up for us here. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe and check out all our social media stuff in the description below. For Nick Cummings, I'm Nick Cummings. For Danny Hernandez and James Jasanti, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you here next time on the Market Down Podcast. Have a good one, everyone.